So tonight we have our non-instructional budget being presented. This presentation includes a lot of different topics, as we'll see in the upcoming slides. Our Director of Facilities, Steve Chamberlain, will not only present the 22-23 budget, but also provide an overview of where we are with all of our facilities projects. So I promise that part will be fun and exciting. And then John Chow will go.
Great.
Okay.
And he promises to entertain you with a lot of very other important information that might not perhaps be as exciting.
Okay.
Nonetheless, I'll turn it over to our two presenters, and then I'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll try to keep my part entertaining.
Well, thank you, and good evening. So Mr. Chamberlain and I will have the pleasure to present the 2022-23 non-instructional budget tonight. And this is our last presentation for the 2022-23 budget before the budget adoption on the 19th. And we will first present the remaining of the expenditure budget, and then Mr. Chamberlain will go over the operations and maintenance budget. Our presentation of the remaining part of the budget, expenditure budget, represent about 40% of our total budget. So it is important. And after that, I'll go over the revenue budget. I just want to remind everyone that the entire budget, both the expenditure budget and the revenue budget, they are all online. And all our presentations are online, so you can view at your pleasure. So first, I want to go over the budget again. So this is our proposed budget, and the total budget is $57,712,488. And the budget change is 7.2% increase. The reason this number is highlighted is because we want to stress that this includes a one-time change, change that means the funds that is flowing through the budget, that is a one-shot deal, has no impact on the tax levy. And if you remove that dollar amount, it's close to $2 million, the budget change is 3.6%. And then our tax levy change is an increase of 1.72%. And then you can see our allowable tax cap is 2.11%. And our proposed tax levy increase is lower than the allowable tax cap. And so these are the topics that we'll be covering. And Mr. Chamberlain will go over the operations and maintenance presentation first.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hi.
Very happy to be here tonight to present my operation and maintenance budget for 2022 and 2023. And we're going to talk a little bit about some upcoming and recently completed projects. And we're going to start with the numbers from my budget, and I'm going to go over a few of the lines here where we've seen some bigger changes. And the first one is equipment. There's actually a reduction of $118,500, and this is because in the 2021-2022 budget, we had some funds that were allocated for the high school theatrical lighting upgrade and controls upgrade. I'm happy to say that we're moving forward with this right now. We're in the planning stage. We're working with a large lighting contractor from New York City who can do the work on what's called a TIPS co-op. It's a bid program that we, I think the board approved it on March 29th. So we're able to use this co-op, purchasing co-op, to do this work. And then we go down to utilities. So we have a big increase there. Anybody who owns a home or drives a car knows that utility costs have just been going crazy. To give you an example, in January of 2021, we were paying 12 cents a kilowatt for electricity. In January of 2022, we're paying 19 cents a kilowatt. Now, I'm happy to say that our usage is flat. In fact, it was actually down a little bit year over year. So that helps us out. And then we get to our natural gas costs, which is what we use to heat the buildings. Over that same period, in January of 2021, we were paying 99 cents a therm. January of this year, we were paying $1.37 a therm. So you can see we've seen some fairly significant increases there. Down to maintenance contracts, we have an increase of $79,414. That reflects the evening safety personnel here at the high school. And it also reflects every 5 years, we have to do what's called a building conditions survey and a master plan. So we'll be doing that next year. The other fairly large increases in supplies. Again, our supply costs for custodial and maintenance supplies over the past year have really increased. We've also spent quite a bit of money on PPE and disinfecting products due to COVID. I do see those COVID-related costs start to wane in the coming year, but to be safe, I'm planning to keep an adequate supply of PPE and disinfecting products. So we'll go to the equipment line. We're hoping to replace a 2007 Chevy pickup that we use in our maintenance department. And we're also planning to buy 7 bottle filling stations to be used across the 3 buildings. And the bottle filling stations are requests from the building principals. So a list of utilities we use: natural gas. We use a little bit of fuel oil for one of our small buildings. Electricity, water, sewer, and telephone.
I think that inflation says it all.
Yeah, inflation is correct on all of them. Our maintenance contracts, maintenance service for the elevators, intrusion and fire alarm maintenance, HVAC systems, dust mop service for the custodians. We do boiler water treatment, security cameras and access control we do maintenance on, district-wide mandated annual inspections, and I've gone over those lists usually in my fall report, and they're quite extensive. And as mentioned, we've added the high school evening safety personnel and our building condition survey and master plan. And the supplies are basically all of the custodial maintenance supplies that are required for the proper operation and maintenance of our 7 buildings, which total 350,000 square feet of space, and we have approximately 30 acres of grounds that we maintain. And just going to go through a list of some upcoming maintenance projects. We'll start with the 2022-2023 budget, things that we have budgeted for. As mentioned, will be the installation of those 7 bottle filling stations. There are 2 for the high school, 3 for the middle school, and 2 for Bedford Road School. We'll also be doing some painting and prioritized classrooms and corridors. At Bedford Road School, we're going to be removing specific chalkboards, patching and painting the walls in the classrooms, and installing new whiteboards. That's a request that came from Mrs. Hunger. We also have some new installation of new window treatment for 4 Bedford Road School classrooms. And at the middle school, we have some old porcelain water fountains from the 1950s, most of which do not work. So we'll be removing them, replacing some of them with bottle filling stations, and then the ones that are no longer required will be capping off the plumbing lines. And moving over to this year's budget, projects that we are currently working on is the, as mentioned before, the high school theatrical lighting and lighting control upgrade. We're also at the middle school going to create in the back of the school a 30-foot by 30-foot gravel area to support the expansion of the middle school outdoor classroom. The stone stairs that go up to the middle school upper entrance are going to be replaced this summer. We are also redoing the retaining wall that is holding up the high school visitor parking lot. And that's a small parking lot if you're standing in front of the gymnasium entrance to the left of the entrance there. It holds maybe 20 cars or so. And at the middle school, we're going to design and build a single-use bathroom in the ISP room. This is a project that we'll do totally in-house. I'll design it with my maintenance foreman, John Rena, and we'll do all the work in-house. I just want to talk a minute about one of our bigger projects that's on the horizon. This is the middle school HVAC project. The scope of this work will be to replace major portions of the existing HVAC system with a new VRF system that will provide heating, cooling, dehumidification, and ventilation using an energy recovery relief air system. It will also include a new digital control building management system that will allow for better individual space temperature control. This project will improve indoor air quality by increasing airflow rates to dilute concentrations of airborne pathogens and CO2. It will be more efficient, quieter, and easier to maintain than using individual classroom univentilators with condensers. And our phase 2 of the capital project, most of the work was completed last summer. However, due to supply chain problems, we were unable to get a lot of the materials. So the remaining projects are the replacement of the curtain wall and windows for the high school 1972 wing classrooms. Those are the classrooms on that side of the high school. They're mostly math and science rooms, and the windows face the back of the building. We have actually now all the materials here on site, and we have scheduled the work to be performed next week over the break. The project is replacement of the older awning-type windows at the middle school. Believe it or not, the windows were ordered a year ago. We still don't have them. I'm hoping that that project can get done this summer, as well as a middle school electrical service upgrade that we've been waiting for materials for. And now we're going to look at some pictures. Some of the projects that we have completed recently. This is the high school library, or Bedford Road School library renovation, excuse me. I didn't have finished pictures in my September report because it wasn't finished, again, due to materials arriving late. This is what it looks like now. Got a nice facelift, as did the Bedford Road School Computer Lab.
That's nice.
Both complete now and being used. We also recoated the entire roof at the Bedford Road School. Bedford Road has a metal roof. It was almost 20 years old. It was starting to show signs of rust, so we had it recoated, and we have a brand new 20-year warranty on that roof. Middle school gym got a little love. We put some new bleachers in there, and we also did some new wall padding.
Very nice.
These, again, are a couple of projects that were done last summer as part of phase 2 of the capital project. And again, I didn't have pictures in September because they weren't complete. This is a whole reconfiguration of the middle school locker room and OT-PT room.
Mm-hmm. It's a great looking room.
Last summer, the middle school also got some nice landscape improvements outside and front and in the courtyard area, and got a new school sign. High school and middle school both had asbestos tile abatement and replacement in the high school auditorium and in the middle school corridor and classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
We did some fairly extensive window repairs here at the high school and also at the Bedford Road School.
Mm-hmm.
Is that from the library?
Mm-hmm.
Were those the library windows that you showed us in the facilities tour?
At the Bedford Road School?
Yeah.
No, they're classroom windows
Those are
Oh, okay.
classroom.
that got
Look at
repaired.
that one on the left.
In the high school, last summer, we did 82 windows. It's basically new balances in the windows that needed to be replaced. They were windows that were either not operable or wouldn't stay up once they were opened. And we plan on doing another 20 this summer.
Are you still planning to work on the library BRS windows, or are the ones, are they fixed, the ones that were
I didn't know
started?
that I don't think there's any broken in the library, but maybe you know better than me, Angel, I'm sorry.
No, not that they're broken, but you were pointing out to us at during one of our facilities tours, some of the rotting wood. And I
Right,
thought
that was
you would have
classroom
them-
though, not in the library.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's one of them from the classroom.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was the library, sorry.
You scared me. I thought I had more to do. Also, here at the high school, we had the olive branches above the main entrance, and they were the original horsehair plaster decorative olive branches that were up there that unfortunately fell down, and we had them replaced with a PVC product that should last a long time.
Great.
District office got a new entrance.
That's nice.
Extends their overhang there to give a little shelter when you walk out the door. Also makes it a lot more visible with some new signage. And we painted Parkway Fieldhouse. And at the high school, again in the 1972 wing, we upgraded all of the electrical panels and distribution panels. And that's all I have.
Great.
Looks great, thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I just want to say one more thing before I leave. So this is the 16th budget that I prepared and presented to the Board of Education, and I got to tell you, I'm so thankful for, over the years, all of the support I get from everybody, the administration, the Board of Ed, the community, because it just enables me to continue to do good and important work, and I just want to thank
Great.
everybody for that.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you for your dedication to keeping our facilities beautiful.
Of course.
Thank you. As you can see, the operations and maintenance department has been very busy, and it's always difficult to follow that because, as you can see, I have no pictures to show. So this is the order. I will be going over the general support, transportation, and undistributed. Under the undistributed, there are two parts. One is the employee benefits, and the other one is debt service. And then I'll talk about the revenues, tax cap, estimated tax rates. I think that has been long awaited. And then talk about the contingency budget. So the first part is the general support. And general support including these 5 categories: the Board of Education, chief school administrator, finance, staff, and special items. And I just go over very quickly the large changes. In finance, you see an increase of $56,000 because in our proposal, we are adding a support staff for the central office, and therefore is budgeted here. And the staffing, I just want to give a clarification. What is including the staffing is the legal cost, HR, and public information. That's all included in this category. And the special items, we have insurance, judgments, claims, sewer taxes, refund on real properties, and BOCES, admin cost, and capital project cost. And you see a slight increase of $21,000. That's because mainly because of the insurance increase. And now is the transportation. We have 2 parts, and one is the transportation contract, and also we have special services transportation cost. And then the BOCES line is because we belong to a consortium, and we had to pay for the personnel cost, which is estimated at $12,000 a year. Now we'll go to the employee benefits. This is a very large number, and this represents over 20% of our total budget. And I'll go over the large changes. So the large one is, you see TRS, there's an increase because the rate has increased about 5%. And therefore, we will see an increase of over $100,000. And then the next large increase is the health insurance. We belong to the night shift program. This is the New York State insurance program. And unfortunately, the insurance has increased by 12%. That is for this current calendar year. And we are projecting next year, the half of the year next year, which is part of the 22-23 budget, will always be at 12, also be at 12%, because at this point, there's no indication of any numbers. And based on the inflation, so we're using the 12% as an estimate. And the Medicare refund, you see an increase of 135,000. There isn't a large jump. It's just that for this year's budget, we are short, and therefore we are catching up and also projecting the increase. So you see a line increase of $135,000. And the last change is the large increase is the 49,000 under others. This is the compensated absence. This is the 403B non-elective contribution. So what that means is contractually, if someone retires, for example, the unused vacation days or unused sick days, they will be paid out of this fund. And then we'll have the debt service. I think when I look at the debt service, I always look at it as a total package, because if you look at the serial bonds, principal and serial bond interest, I really look at that as one number. It's a one package, because when you structure the bond, they always do the principal payment and interest payment, and sort of they line it up together. So even though one line has a large increase, one line has a large decrease, but when you add the two together as a package, the increase is not that large. There is an increase. And the reason is because when the 21-22 budget was prepared, at that time we haven't borrowed the $8.9 million bond. So the number that was put into the 21-22 was a very rough estimate. And now we have the real number, so these are the actual number that we are projecting that we'll have to pay next year. And then we still have a small portion of the energy performance bond to pay off, principal and interest. And then here is the Interfund Transfer. Interfund Transfer, there are two parts to it. One is the Special Aid Fund. This is for the ESY program. This is the Special Education Program. And this has to be, based on the state law, we have to budget it here. And this is the funds that is going to be transferred out into the Special Aid Fund. And we are responsible for 20% of the cost, and then the state is going to support 80% of the cost. This is for the summer program for special education students. And then the Capital Project Fund, you don't see an increase, but there's a slight difference in changes for 21-22 and 22-23. For 21-22, we have $200,000 dedicated to the middle school oil tank removal, which we're in the process of doing. We have a plan up for the SED to approve it. Once it's approved, then we'll bid this out. Mr. Chamberlain believed that we can probably do this project this summer. And the other remaining $255,000 was dedicated to the middle school HVACs. And we will still continue to go do that, and this is going to become part of the package we're going to talk about a little bit later. And then also, we have $455,000 for the 22-23 school year. That is also for the middle school HVAC project. Now, we talk about the revenues. And so this is a balanced budget. So the revenue, the total number on the bottom for 22-23 is exactly the same as the revenue, is $57,712,488. And just like most of the other Westchester school districts, the real property taxes represent the largest portion of our revenue. And here is represent about 68% of our total revenues that is going to be collected from the real property taxes. And then this year you see an increase of 1.1 million in the second line is for state, federal sources, but the increase really is coming from the state source. This is the foundation aid. We have a very large increase in foundation aid, and this is the second year of a 3-year increase. So hopefully next year we'll see another increase. And appropriation of fund balance, here I want to mention again, I think we already talked about this at least 2 times, and we see an increase of close to $2 million. These are the appropriation fund balance that is going to be transferred into the general fund, but it's going to be transferred out to the capital fund for the middle school HVAC project. This has no impact on the tax levy. It has the impact on the budget increase, but it's a one-shot deal. And so this has no impact on the tax levy. And then the next line is the tax revenues. And this tax revenue is different from the first line. This is the county sales tax. And during this year, we have seen an increase, and we project that the increase will probably remain. So next year, we are projecting an increase of over $100,000. And charges for services is pretty unique to the school district because we do have tuition-paying students. And charges for services are mainly for the tuitions when we taking tuitions from other school districts. And then the last item is miscellaneous revenues. And we have talked about this. This is a tax cap. And I'll just highlight some important numbers. I know the number is very small, but at midpoint, you will see the increase, allowable increase of, put down 2%. But the reality is that CPI increase is 4.7. And I think it was reminded that this is the 10th year of the tax cap. I think we should celebrate. But the tax cap indicated that, the tax cap law indicated that you can only go up either the CPI or 2%, whichever is lower.
Right, yeah.
And this year, even though the CPI is 4.7, we can only use 2%. So it really doesn't help us much, but we're using 2% here. And go through this formula, and you have a calculation, and our tax cap, allowable tax cap is 2.1%, and the total amount is, let me just make sure, 814,000. I'll go back to the previous slide. The important number here is the upper corner on the right-hand side, $662,000.
Right.
I'll talk about it again when we talk about contingency budget. So this is our tax levy increase, $662,000. That is the number is going to be measured against the allowable tax cap. And here's the estimated tax rates. I think it looks a little bit different. I have a different way of showing this. Even though we listed 2 townships, but the important thing here is that 99.8% is a very large portion is all in the Mount Pleasant Township. We only have 1 piece of property is in the Newcastle. But because we're under 2 townships, so we have to do a apportionment of the tax levy. And based on the calculations, the majority of the people, everyone minus 1, will see probably an increase of tax rate increase of 1.42%. That's the bottom part under Mount Pleasant. And I don't know whether you wonder why does one have an increase of 1.42 and the other one has a decrease of 4.6. It is all because of the equalization rate.
And look at the, yeah.
And that is difficult to explain, but because we're under 2 townships, so the assessments are very, very different. You can see that the numbers are very different. And what Mount Pleasant portion has seen is that the equalization rate has decreased from 1.37% to 1.31%. And whereas the Newcastle part see an increase of 19.06 to 19.38. When the equalization rates go the opposite direction, you will see something like this.
Yep.
But the important thing here is that there's only one piece of property is in the Newcastle Township.
So it's really difficult for school districts when, you know, you have half and half. And
Sure.
someone's getting
Yeah, that would be very difficult
a
to
decrease
explain.
and someone's getting an increase.
Right.
And it was interesting when Rob Astorino was county legislator and executive, and the levy for the county taxes stayed the same for 8 years. Right, so there's no increase in taxes in terms of what the levy was, but different municipalities bounced around. So we had our taxes go up 14% one year, county taxes, and then down 17% the next year, you know, based on the equalization rate. But again, the tax levy stayed the same. So some of these things, you know, based on how the state does, it's, you know, how different municipalities become richer and poorer in the state's eyes can really make different municipalities' tax rates swing, which is problematic when you're trying to pass budgets and
Yeah.
there's no change.
But the good thing, the good news for most of our residents here is that when you see the equalization rate decrease,
Right.
what that is telling you is the market value has gone up.
Yep.
Because the divisor, when the divisor becomes smaller, your value goes up. You know, the end result is a larger number. So if you do a comparison, true value assessment is higher than last year
Right.
because of the equalization rate has
Right.
decreased.
And SHEP was lower.
Right.
Yeah.
It is like that.
It's because you came here.
Well, you know, it's very difficult, just like Shane said, that when you have larger apportionment of two townships, and when the equalization rates go separate direction, you will see it will impact a large portion of your resident, and that is the part is very difficult to explain.
Right.
So at my previous employment, when I experienced that, I experienced twice. I try not to explain that. I always invite the assessors to come to talk about it, because I don't know how to explain that. And here is the property
This one's even
tax.
smaller.
It is
I'm supposed
small.
to read that, John, come on.
Well, I think you have a copy in front of you.
I need a
Yeah, I can't
magnifying.
read that either.
You know, actually, I cannot see it either, but this is a required document that we must present. This is a property tax report card. And the important thing is that it shows the budget, it shows the tax cap, and then on the bottom part is also has a projection of the fund balance. And this is required. And this also is a document that is required to be ratified by the school board at the time of the budget adoption. So this will be included at the next board meeting, and that will be part of the board resolution. Yeah, it will be big. And this is the second portion of it, and this is actually prepared by our treasurer. So it's a capture of on March 31st, what kind of fund balance we have at that time, and what is the projections, and then the last column talk about the possible usage. And here is the budget notice. This is another piece of required document, and this is required to be presented, and also this is required to be sent to every taxpayer. So this will be included. Julie will take care of that. They will be included with the budget newsletter. And here it shows the contingency budget. It shows the required three-part budget. And then also one thing that I want to stress is that our contingency budget meets the requirement that the administration cost percentage if we go to contingency budget is lower than the regular budget. So that is a calculation that we always have to go through, and this meets that. And this is second part of the budget notice, and there are two parts. The first part is we have to inform the voters of what's going to be on the proposition. So we will have three propositions. The first one is the budget itself. And the second one is we have the establishment of the Capital Reserve Fund, and that has no monetary impact, and therefore you see a zero there. And the second part is that we want the voters to consider the approval of a $2 million bond for the middle school HVAC project, and that amount is $2 million. And I think we talked about this before. Actually, not I think. I know we talked about this before, and the important thing is that even though we're borrowing $2 million, it's very likely it's going to have no cost to the taxpayers. All depends when we borrow the money next May, around May or June, what will be the interest rate. At this point, it's very likely that it's going to be a wash based on our 51.6% of the building aid that we'll be receiving. And the second part is that we need to demonstrate what is the estimated basic STAR exemption savings. Here you see the number is $1,721. I know it's very small, but it's $1,721. That's exactly the same amount as the 21-22 budget. So I'll just go over very briefly about the contingency budget. What is a contingency budget? Is when the voters reject a proposed budget. And the second part is the contingency budgets may not include a tax levy higher than the prior year levy. What that means is a 0% tax levy growth. And previously, I mentioned that the important number is $662,000, and that's the amount that has to be reduced. And also, this information must be included in the budget notice, which is, previously we already showed it to you. And so when does a school district go to contingency budget? So the important thing is on May 17th, there is a budget vote. And, this is a decision tree. When it's approved, then of course the budget is adopted. If it is not approved, then you have to go through the exercise. At that point, the board can adopt a contingency budget. But that contingency budget has to be with 0% increase of tax levy. Or the board at that point can put up another budget. And there are three possibilities. You can put up the same budget, you can actually present a larger budget, and you can have a reduction of the budget, and you present to the public for a second vote. And the second vote is always the third Tuesday in June. And then, of course, there are two possible outcomes. One is approval, then the budget will be adopted, or disapproved. Then at that point, you don't have a choice. You have to go to contingency budget. Now, what does that mean? That means we have to find ways to reduce $662,887. And where can we cut? Of course, there are two ways. One is to reduce the expenditures, and the other way is to use fund balance to support the budget. And if you want to go the route of the reduction of expenditures, there are two categories. One is personnel, one is non-personnel. I'll turn this over to the superintendent now.
So we've had a series of budget presentations. As you can see, we started with our budget preview, then we moved to our proposed budget. We then had school-level budgets, we had our instructional budgets, and now today we had our non-instructional budget. So at our next meeting would be the adoption of the budget, and then we would move in May to our public hearing. And then, of course, the big day, May 17th, is when we have our annual budget vote. We did have two budget forums. One was virtual and one was in person. The recording of the virtual presentation is on our website. And we have this beautiful depiction of all that we packed in. Hopefully we packed in our toilet paper, right, and all our supplies, but that has a double meaning there. But We packed a lot into all of these budget presentations. So I wanted to provide an opportunity for the board to have any comments around the budget that we have prepared thus far.
And I have some, but I'll ask if other people would like to say anything first.
I would like to thank all the administrators and Dr. Desai. I know it's been a little bit challenging between COVID and new staff and everybody kind of getting their footing, but I think this has been one of the most thorough that I've seen budget presentations, so thank you.
I was going to use that word too, very thorough. The presentations were great, everyone we've gotten, and the backup materials, questions have all been answered over the course of the presentation, so I really appreciate everybody's effort. It's a lot to calculate while expanding for students, so it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, you mentioned a lot of new staff. I'm new, John's new, and almost our entire, what do we have? Out of the 7, we have 5 new people in our district office in terms of personnel.
Right.
So it's not just the 2 of us, it's all the people that
Donna
are
right
running.
there, yeah.
Donna's one of them. 1, 2, 3 of the
Right.
new people at district office. So it has been great, and our administrative team has done a tremendous job of collaborating with our staff and making sure that we're representing the needs to make sure that our students have what they need, which means that our staff needs to have what they need to provide instruction and to provide support. Whether the support is making sure that we have enough toilet paper, or whether the support is in the way of academic support, instructional technology, et cetera, and so on. So we've really tried to look at this from all angles to make sure that we're growing in the areas that we need to grow in to best support our students. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well done.
So I just wanted to highlight a couple things, and it's interesting when you look at the budget and the bond, and I'll kind of put them together. Very, very often you have a budget, and then you have a bond, and they're somewhat separate. What's great about this budget is that so much of the costs of what we're trying to do with the HVAC in the middle school is covered actually in the budget. So in using money that we put aside in the budget that we've highlighted over time for a project that we knew we had to do, and being inventive in terms of figuring out ways, use of fund balance and other savings, and doing this bond at the same time, we've come up with a solution. We haven't, they have, of giving the community something it really needs in the middle school, this HVAC system, without potentially any cost to the taxpayer in terms of an increase.
Right.
And so looking at this as a package in that way is exciting. I mean, I know doing things like HVAC work isn't the most exciting to the community, but it's something that we really need. And the one thing I'll say about that is, it's with COVID and things, we haven't been able, especially in the beginning of the year, to have parents back in the school for those nights. But had they been there, they would be reminded, if they hadn't been there in a while, just how much of a need it was. But you have those 2 things going on in this budget, while at the same time coming in more than $150,000 under the tax cap. Right? I mean, so it's a really responsible budget. Look, we can go up to 2.1 to the tax cap. We don't, because we're asking for, what we need, right? And instead of going up to $814,629, we're going up to $662,887. And so it's a responsible budget. It's really a package, and I think it's going to be a little hard potentially for the community to understand that this bond isn't something that's really going to raise their taxes based on what we will find out exactly when the interest rate we know when we go out to bond. But very likely, we're able to do this work using some funds we set aside to complete a project that we need to have to the benefit of our students and their learning, and to the staff. Without a tax increase for that specific purpose.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like, obviously, we will be borrowing the money up front. The reason ultimately it won't cost us very much money is because over the course of the years that we're paying off this bond, we will be getting building aid back from the state on the entire project. So
Right.
the whole project won't cost the taxpayers any additional money because we will be getting aid back on more than just the $2 million bond, the whole $6 million, well, not the whole
Not the
$6
whole
million
$6 million,
project.
but it is a $6 million
but
project, yeah.
It's a $6 million project. Some of it is already grant money, so we will not get money back on that. But the part that we will get money back on will most likely, depending on the interest rate, cover the amount we're borrowing.
Right.
So that's ultimately why it won't cost the taxpayer any money in the years ahead.
I think conceptually, that's a difficult thing to understand, that you're borrowing, or you're using monies, right, that we've allocated through long-term planning. You're borrowing money, and the total portion of the project is $6 million. Those two buckets, when we showed the bucket slide, so outside the federal aid, right,
Right.
you've got those two buckets that total $4.6 million. And where else in your finances, when you are borrowing money, do you get aid back on the money that you're borrowing?
Right.
I think that's the conceptual piece that is, it is a challenge to understand. But the state rewards the fact that you're doing capital improvements. So even if you're borrowing the money, getting back aid, what is it, 56%?
51.6.
51.6. I got my digits confused. 51.6% aid on $4.6 million total of the project. It's just, I think it's conceptually weird, and I've asked a lot of different people, John for one, give me an example of where this happens so people can relate and people can understand. Oh, this happens when, no, it doesn't happen when you have student loans. It doesn't happen when you have a mortgage. It doesn't happen when you borrow on a CD. It doesn't happen in any of these places. So it's really just hard conceptually to understand because there's not like a relatable experience that we can say, oh, hey, this is what happens when, you do this. It's its own very unique, strange and lucky for us sort of way to do this project. So thank you for pointing that out. Because I think that is, again, difficult to conceptualize.
So I just want to put some numbers out there.
Okay.
So when we do this project of $6 million, and just like Dr. Tissot say, $4.6 million will be subject to the state aid at 51.6%. If you do a calculation of 51.6% of 4.6 million, you get close to 2.4 million. And we're borrowing 2 million.
Right.
So we have that 0.4 million out there to pay for the interest. So
Right.
that is really the bottom line. And
Right.
we are very hopeful that 400,000 will cover the interest. All depends what kind of rate we get.
Right.
Right.
That's great.
The other important thing to point out, which doesn't get as much fanfare because it's not as exciting, is the capital reserve account.
Yep.
Right,
Yes.
because that is planning for our
The
next
future.
capital expenditure.
Right.
So we can, in 3 years, have the same meeting and say, the budget's gone up, but you're not paying for it because we already have the money in a dedicated
Right.
account. And the public is going to get to vote on the
Right.
use of that.
And then I want to stress again, when we prepare the budget notice, as you see, you saw earlier, there are two lines. One is for this reserve, and we put down 0 because we are not asking for money. And if you look at the resolution that you passed last fall, it is when we have leftover money from at the end of the year.
Right.
We can dedicate that to that reserve for future use. So we're not asking for any money.
Right. Right.
That's great.
It just, it might be a little bit confusing, so we have to keep saying that, so thank you. Any other comments? Okay. There being none, I'm going to get this right. Oh, I'll let you continue.
And the final slide is just our contact information for Ms. Vitucci, our district clerk, myself, or John Chow. There is our contact information. Feel free to call, feel free to email us if you have any comments on our 22-23 budget or anything at all. We're happy to talk, we're happy to email, whatever works. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. DeSalle.